Hi, thank you. So I'm Andrew Mercer. I'm a survey methodologist at Pew Research Center. And normally I'm talking about my own surveys when I do these kinds of presentations, but today I decided I would look at the field as a whole, probability panels in general. Starting with 2020 and now in 2024, we have two presidential elections in the United States that had a sizable number of polls conducted on probability-based panels. The first one didn't go so well, and everybody, not just probability panels, but almost every pollster made some major changes to their methodologies. And so I wanted to see if I could do an analysis of basically the 538 database of polls to see if there are any distinct patterns with respect to the probability-based panels, how they differ from the rest, and if some of these changes that were made to the methodology, and the one I'm mostly going to focus on is the changes to the weighting on partisan variables, if those, what was the impact of that? So just to lay out what I am looking at, I took the essentially 180 days before the election, all of the national polls in the 538 database for both 2020 and 2024. And I'm looking at two kinds of questions. One is the presidential horse race vote, the difference between the Democrat and the Republican candidate. And for that, polls release usually multiple estimates of a vote. So to pick one, I picked, if there's a likely voter estimate, I picked that, and then registered, and then adults if that was the only one they reported. If there were multiple versions, I picked the one that had the third-party candidates included, and if there were multiple of those, picked the one that had the lower undecided. And then for the approval polls, it's the opposite with respect to the population preferring the approval among adults, all adults, and then registered voters, and then likely voters, because that's sort of how those get reported more commonly. So what I did, took all of these polls. I won't get too much into the modeling here for time, but basically fit multi-level generalized additive models to get, sort of remove the house effects from all of the different pollsters to estimate a sort of a smooth trend for probability and non-probability panels separately, while controlling for the population that was being surveyed. And in terms of the data, this is just what we have. In 2020, we had 8 pollsters using probability-based panels. We had 55 horse race polls. In 2024, right, 11 pollsters. So we've increased the total number of pollsters, but we have fewer, at least national horse race polls. And I do think in 2024 there was more of an emphasis on state level polling, so that sort of makes sense. And then a lot fewer approval polls in general in 2024 as well. Oh, wrong button. So this is the sort of the results for the 2020 presidential election vote margin. And let me just sort of explain what this is. So the orange is the sort of predicted, the expected vote margin for a probability-based panel at each point in time, assuming that it was polling likely voters, right? So we fit the model, and this is sort of the predicted values that we would get. And the smoothing term is sort of estimated separately for the two different types of surveys. The blue is basically all of the other kinds of polls. And then the dotted line there is the actual eventual election result, right? And so what we have here is, consistently the probability-based panels in 2020 were overestimating the the Democratic vote share. Well, all of the polls were, right? But the probability panels actually were by a little over 2 points relative to the other polls. And there, it doesn't, the trend doesn't really track, right? You've got some ups and downs in the other polling, but we don't in the probability-based panels. Is that wrong? Well, I mean, the bias is wrong. I don't know about the trend part, but they're definitely different. So what do we see in 2024? In 2024, actually, it's virtually indistinguishable. The differences between the probability panels and everybody else have essentially gone away. And it also, they're all following the same trend. So to the extent that we've made changes, it looks like the field has converged. Now, what about approval? So similar thing here. This is the margin of presidential approval, well, disapproval for Donald Trump in 2020. It's disapproval minus approval, which is not usually how we do it, but positive numbers are more democratic and negative numbers are less, is the reason I set it up that way. And again, here, big differences between the probability-based panels and everybody else, substantially higher disapproval, much larger margin there. Now, in 2024, so this is Biden approval minus disapproval. So, up is more democratic. We actually have a total reversal, right, where the probability-based panels are less democratic than the rest of the polls here on the approval measure. So it's interesting where in the vote we've sort of converged, but here we've sort of flipped. Is this an error? That's hard to say, but it's sort of an interesting pattern that I noticed. Now, so to the question though of how much did the changes in methodology impact this, or what was important? I mean, this seemed like a very good idea when I had it. It turns out this is sort of hopelessly confounded. Basically, in 2020, we had different pollsters who were doing horse race polling. In 2024, the Understanding America panel and the AmeriSpeak panel don't have horse race polls in the 538 database. The SSRS panel didn't exist in 2020. But interestingly, in terms of the weighting adjustments, only the American Trends panel, that's Pew's probability-based panel, weighted on party ID, whereas in 2024, all of the probability-based panels are weighted on some sort of partisan adjustment. The sort of quasi-exception is AmeriSpeak. They weight on party, but it's like a rolling average of previous AmeriSpeak polls, so it's not like an external benchmark. So there's basically no way to sort of identify any sort of causal effects here. But we can just sort of look at whether or not the different ways of weighting adjusting for party make a difference. So this is looking at just the probability-based panels. It's the trend over the same period of time in 2024. And it's the blue line are polls that are weighted only based on party ID or party registration. I should have picked different colors. I think it's the green line, right, is people who voted on past presidential vote, which was controversial. And then I think it's turn around. Yeah, the sort of, oh, I'm sorry, I've got the colors wrong. The brown is past vote. The green is people who weighted on both party ID and past vote. It looks a little bit like maybe party weighting only on party ID gets you slightly less democratic estimates. But when you put this into a model and you control for, remove house effects, this basically all goes away. So there's not really a clear difference in terms of if one or the other of these perform better, at least in this data. And I have 2 seconds left. So just conclusions. this was interesting. I think the patterns that we see in terms of the overall, relative differences between probability panels and the other are really interesting, but it's hard to make much of, really the methodological changes or come to any definitive conclusions there. But and that's that.